Assalamu alaikum. Welcome everybody again. This is our final session before we close. The session now is about cybersecurity outsourcing. And with us, we have two speakers. We have Usama Hlele and Ahmed Abu Gharbi in Chicago. We have a couple of videos to watch. Then I will be happy to introduce the speakers and get this presentation going.
Hi, I am Zaina Al-Arouqi. I am a participant in the Software Engineering Bootcamp program funded by ANERA. What I can say about the program is that it was a huge milestone in my life. It almost affected each part of it, either personally or professionally. The way I take my decisions is different. My priorities are different. And my time management techniques are different. I think and handle problems differently. My self-confidence is way much higher. After this program, actually, I knew that I can do any task or any project within the required time without panicking about it, and knowing that I will learn a lot during the process. I love what I became after this program, as I am now almost free from my dark or negative thoughts. After this program, I had so many opportunities landing jobs. First, I worked as a mobile developer using a new framework called Flutter. Then I worked as a technical mentor, which was a huge chance for me, and it boosted my self-confidence a lot. I also work now as a full-stack web developer, and I did all of that while my paycheck was increasing. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
You are the orchestra leader of your business or organization. You are an author, chef, physician, dentist, real estate agent, or an organization leader. You are in it for success and doing what you love, but you don't have the time to learn marketing skills and need to focus on your business and customers. Who are we? Think of us as an extension of your business or organization. We are your marketing team without the cost of hiring employees and dealing with the hassle. We are experts digital marketers who care about your business and its success. We give you exactly what you need to grow your business without the unnecessary extras. Web design and development, social media marketing, email marketing, online reputation management, search engine optimization, online advertising, video editing, branding and graphic design, printing, print and digital signage. You run your business and let us be your worry-free marketing agency. It doesn't have to be costly. It has to be effective.
So now we'll start with Ahmed Abu Gharbiya. Ahmed Abu Gharbiya is a cybersecurity professional. He spent 10 years working in Palestine before moving to the US. He's a partner at SciStack, a leading cybersecurity company in Ramallah, Palestine. In the US, Ahmed manages a team of cloud security professionals who help clients secure their cloud infrastructures. He also teaches at SANS, the leading cybersecurity training institute in the US. Ahmed, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening for our listeners in the US, in Ramallah, in Palestine. Everyone who's listening from the US. Give me a second. Sorry about that. So thank you, Silky, for the introduction. As Silky mentioned, I've been doing a lot of work in Palestine as well as in the US. And cybersecurity is a very interesting field to be at. And what has been interesting to me is seeing both how we worked in Palestine and also how we're working here in the US as well. So I'm going to give some details and information about my own experience and how I see things moving here and also there. And given that, beginning with the US, the cybersecurity market a couple of decades ago started to shape up really. And that came because organization figured out that with them relying more and more on technology, there are many risks that are being introduced with that as well. And then soon after that, they figured out that security has to become a crucial item in their budgets. So that created a big market in cybersecurity in the US and also in other places across the world. So I often do some searches every now and then just to check up on the status of the market. So I was doing the same search and looking into the market in the US, and I came across a few reports. There are differences in numbers, but I got the following numbers. So as an example, one report states that the US cybersecurity market size is in 2019 is at $21.14 billion. Now, the same report states that the global market is at 66.86. So 30% of that is the US market, according to this report. The report also states that in 2023, the US market, the world market will be at $91 billion. And in 2030, it will be at $182 billion. So that means within the next 10 years, we are about to witness a huge influx, a huge expansion in this market. It's also worth mentioning that in 2019, the median pay for a security analyst in the US was roughly around $100,000 for someone who's like about 5 years of experience. And that maps very well with what we are seeing in the market here itself. It's a very big market. It's expanding rapidly. And there's a gap. There's a gap in talent. So these companies, when you look at their spending, like where are they spending the money on when it comes to security? It comes down to some of it goes to solutions, right? These are information security solutions that they deploy, firewalls and what have you. Other parts of it is consulting. These are the consultants, especially when it comes to compliance, where you basically need to make sure your systems are okay, your infrastructure is secure. And then, of course, there's the human resource aspect of it. And this is where much of that money goes into. And now, I also came across this website, and I'm going to try to share my screen just to see. Let me see if I can do that. All right, it seems like you guys can see my screen, right? So I came across this website called cyberseek.org, and basically it's if you go to the main page of the website, it basically says there's a huge gap in the cybersecurity skills, and many people are doing a lot of things to help fix that. And if you go to their interactive map, and if these numbers are accurate, let's take a look here. Basically, it's saying that national level, that's across the US, you get a little bit under 1 million people employed in the cybersecurity workforce. There's 520,000 opening, and that's a huge gap. Now, if we look in more details, like this is broken by state, and we notice that California, Texas, and Virginia is where most of these jobs are. Now, that leads us to what can we do about this? Like, how can we address this issue? And within the Palestinian market, going back to Palestine, I've worked there for like 10 years, and the vast majority of these 10 years were in the cybersecurity space, where I was a partner at a cybersecurity company. Somewhere around 10, 15 years ago, the business community, the education community, and the government realized that technology, and in specific information security, is one of these sectors that they have to invest in, simply because the return on such investment will be really high in comparison to the amount of work that you're going to put into it. A decade ago, we saw a rise in the number of cybersecurity companies that are working in Palestine. So you're talking about an era you're talking about a time where there was absolutely no cybersecurity companies. And then roughly like 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that, some of these companies started to pop up. And I can speak about one of them. I can speak about SciTech just because I'm more familiar with the details of what happened. So the story of SciTech is interesting. It started around 2010. And when we first started, we started selling cybersecurity solutions. These are imported system, hardware, or software, things such as antiviruses, firewalls, what have you. And we would install and integrate these into the companies and the organization within the local market. Now, soon after that, and as we started gaining more experience, we started to move more into the consulting aspect of it. And what that basically means is that now the local companies can actually rely on local talents rather than going outside for companies like EY and Deloitte and so on and so forth. And that was especially true when we started getting into the compliance aspect of it. And we started actually giving people, so we became certified to give the compliance to basically to certify other organizations, banks, and so on for things such as PCI DSS and so on and so forth. Now, at that point, that was a big jump for us. So we started thinking about expanding outside of Palestine. And we started naturally expanding to places like Jordan and the Gulf. We did some work in Europe as well. And we did like some progress here and there. Now, on the other hand, at the same time, the universities started to notice this change as well. And they started working on different programs, starting to explore how they can actually produce more highly qualified cyber professionals. And I think Osama will talk a little bit more about this. But basically, we have a big number of students in the Palestinian market. And many different speakers actually touched on this, so I'm not going to go into more details about it. But we have a lot of talented people, and we have interviewed a lot of them. We have hired a lot of them, and the results are amazing. And just to give you an example of the caliber that we are talking about. So when our security consultants have free time, they participate in bug bounty programs. And bug bounty programs are these companies, they often need someone to look for security vulnerabilities, security issues within their infrastructure. And they usually pay these people, these outside people for their services if they identify a correct vulnerability. And I've been looking around and checking out what our guys have been doing, and I was astonished to find out that they're finding security holes in big companies such as Dell, CrowdStrike, Uber, Facebook, the US Department of Defense, and you got their names, the Palestinian names, in the Hall of Fames for these different programs. Now, we didn't stop here, right? That was just a beginning for us. So now, what we are doing and what we are seeing other companies doing as well is that we're moving into one step further, which is actually producing solutions, which is producing cybersecurity solutions as well. So as of 2020, we have several initiatives, several projects that we're working on to move into that sphere. Now, naturally, the big market is the US. And I think one of the things that we are constantly working on, and many people here in the US are working on, is how do we want to get our services into the US, whether that is outsourcing, whether that is development, or whether that is the solutions that we are providing, that we are writing in Palestine and selling in the US. I would stop here. I would give it back to Sadki and Osama. Sorry if I took more time, but I'm happy to hear any questions after the second.
Thank you for that, Ahmed. I appreciate it. And as a reminder to everybody, please post your questions in the chat, and we will address them in the Q&A session. So now to our next speaker, Osama Hlele. Osama Hlele is an enterprise architect with more than 20 years of professional experience providing technology solutions for organizations in industries including legal, public services, healthcare, finance, retail, hospitality, and manufacturing. Osama is well versed in all phases of project delivery, from initiation to closeout. His ability to see the big picture is is a product of his comprehensive knowledge of hardware, software, application, and systems engineering. Usama's myriad interests include international affairs, nutrition and health, cooking, and music. He has played the flute since childhood and is an avid runner and bicyclist.
I need to stop you, Sudki, before you go too far.
Okay, that's what was provided.
Oh my gosh.
Well, he currently manages, designs, and deploys Palo Alto for legal, healthcare, and financial services.
That's pretty old. So that's probably from 2014, but excellent nonetheless. So just a quick intro. So I'm the CEO of Crossroads International. We have offices in a couple of countries, in Spain, Canada, and in the US, multiple states in the US. We specialize mostly in cybersecurity solutions and compliance. Whatever I'm going to say, I don't think a lot of people will like. So here we go. First thing, just the data set. Israel has 68,000 vacancies in cybersecurity. So there's a little bit of pressure that whomever Palestinians are trained in cybersecurity might end up working for Israel, which supports the GDP there. Second item that really worries me about all of this is the fact that the Palestinian economy wanting to add this vertical of cybersecurity doesn't mean we're ready for it. I don't think there is, my position or my opinion is that as a market, I don't think there is that market yet. We have an enablement phase that's missing of training enough people to have enough interaction and experience in order for this to work. So I have a negative outlook on hiring Palestinians for cybersecurity. However, at the end of the slides, there's a positive outlook. So stay tuned. Hold on, I'm gonna share. Okay, let's see. So looking at the application window, and we're sharing. Can people see it? Okay, great. So a couple of things. I'm just going to go to the first slide. If I can, I think I'm having the same problem like Iman from before, but let me just see if I can pick it up better. I'm going to say it's stuck. Sidki, you agree it's stuck? Or can you see it moving? If I change it, is it moving?
It's moving, but it seems like there's a lag.
Yeah, there's a lag. Okay, well, let's start. Do you guys see the About Crossroads? Okay, great. So I'll go from there. So the cloud infrastructure, cybersecurity compliance, business continuity, disaster recovery, managed services. I wanted to put this slide, the next slide, about the biggest data breaches. And believe it or not, this is a year and a half old. And already we have breaches that exceed 2 billion email accounts. So this is getting very, very old, very, very quick. In classic security, which I think a lot of companies are talking about, they just talk about, look, you need a security engineer, a researcher, security analyst, incident response. Okay, well, that's great. But believe it or not, I think the attackers have more money and more experts, especially when we talk about state attackers, than anybody else. So the classic model doesn't work. The slide that you're looking at doesn't work. This is 2019 slide. It doesn't work. If you develop cybersecurity based on this slide, it's not going to do anything. Let's go to the next slide. This is a Splunk slide, and it talks about stages of analytics-driven security. Well, this is great. This was the best thing in 2020 from Splunk. Again, it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? The main reason is the attackers are using AI. They're making changes in the signatures. They're making changes in the attacks and in their vectors. that the classic tools aren't working anymore. So I think the shift, I would say the shift since COVID started till today, basically changed it enough that the attackers are, I think, a little bit ahead of us. They're better than us. At Crossroads, we're currently working on an app that we developed for Splunk specifically. I'll go through the details of it. It's about fingerprinting the world. Basically, anybody who's accessing the internet in the world, we're going to assign it a fingerprint. We're going to try to identify if they're good actors or bad actors. We're going to identify where they come from, what language they speak, what's their browser sessions, what's their computer, what kind of browsing they do, how they do it, and try to identify if they're good actors or bad actors. It's a little bit too technical for this session because I want to talk about the economic side of things. But more or less, companies are moving into a lot more intelligence around by identifying the world that's coming to your network. So instead of saying, I'm going to play defense and only protect, I'm going to stop sharing for a second, and only protect, sorry about the delay, and only protect what comes to your network, we're going to identify the world first. And that's, I think, the change that's happening for us. Back to sharing on the next slide. And let's see. This is the really something I wanted to talk to for this session, which is Mujawara. So Mujawara is a program that really started not for cybersecurity. Mujawara started, it's in the Middle East. It started, and a group of other educators, and they said, well, look, if you are saying, what they told me specifically is, if you think that the world and that the Palestinian security, at least professionals or technology professionals are not good, well, why don't you do a Mujawara program with them and teach them, just like you teach woodworking or other things? So this is the program that we're starting in Palestine. We're starting this year. We wanted to start it last year, but we couldn't because of COVID. And what basically happens is we pay people to be a part of Mujawara. We pay them monthly fees. We do the training for them, and we give them an 18-month paid internship. And at the end of it, they become security professionals. And that's kind of the program that we're doing. And there's a specific reason for it. Why? Because really the security field, like when you talk about it, when you finish, whenever you finish, you're going to be way behind everybody else anyways, because it moves quick. We go through the training as, I'm going to stop sharing here. As Ahmed said, that you have all these SANS training programs and stuff like that, but really what happens at the end is you discover that you're still behind. So with Mujawara, we're hoping that instead of saying an American company is just looking to hire people in Palestine, we're saying, let's create these individuals, let's create these professionals in Palestine. So Crossroads' approach is, instead of saying we're going to hire in Palestine, we're going to create, our approach is just to create those professionals. We're hoping other companies would join us if they hire them for internship, if they hire them for a job. We don't care. It's not like we own these people. We train the people, and if they find a job anywhere in the world, we're happy. But I don't want anybody, like for me, I disagree with the basic premise that Palestinian technology people can compete in the world. India is way ahead of us. Bulgaria, Ukraine, Russia, they're way, way ahead of us and cheaper. You could get somebody for $800 that has a PhD and knows security inside out in Serbia, in Ukraine, and in Bulgaria, and a lot of places. For us to compete, we have to create these professionals. We have to put the effort and create the professionals, and then we can compete. And the reason why I said the issue about Israel in the beginning, just to turn it full circle, it just goes to show you how mature the Israeli market is. in the security field and how much job openings they have. So that obviously there's a huge demand in the Middle East, and we can generate similar demand if we put the effort, but we have to put the effort first. That's it.
Thank you, Osama, for the presentation. We appreciate your openness, and that's what we look for. We need practical advice, and so that's what we hope to. Thank you for that. Okay, so now we just want to remind everybody to please post your questions on the chat, and our speakers will address them in this session right now in the Q&A. And I will start with, let's see here, Sean's question that he posted. How do we get around the false but pervasive narrative that U.S. companies cannot give sensitive work like cybersecurity to Palestinians?
Osama, do you want to go first? Okay. So, all right. So it's interesting. Not all cybersecurity jobs are the same, and not all organizations are the same. While in the US there are laws about whom to hire in certain positions, not every company actually follows that, simply because there is a big gap. If you're working for a federal organization, if your job requires a security clearance, then that's definitely going to be very difficult for us to hire someone from outside of the US, and even someone who's not a citizen, let alone someone from the outside. But then for most of the companies, for most of the organizations, they already hire people in other places, in Serbia and in India, and I work with people from these places, and they are great. We hire them in my U.S. company. It's called Sirius. We have contractors. We have contacts in Serbia and in India as well. I've also worked with clients who have who have employees from these places. So generally speaking, not all companies have such a requirement. So it's not a problem to begin with. Again, mind the gap. As if anyone from London is here, we can understand that there's a big gap in information security. And the important thing for organizations is to basically fill this gap and have a secure infrastructure. So they're willing to kind of let this go. I don't think it's an issue in every sector.
My only 2 points on it. I totally agree actually with Ahmad. We work in the energy sector and the banking sector, and there's a lot of security requirements there, training, etc. It is not a requirement at this time. I'll tell you this. Security professionals in the Middle East don't exist, almost, with all due respect to everybody, including myself. There's a huge demand for it, and they get hired from the outside. Maybe we can just simply start by having enough security professionals in the Middle East to support the Middle East, real security professionals that can compete with others. And now we don't let, for instance, for me personally, we don't let Israel build that gap or fill that gap in the Gulf Emirates and others. So there's a lot. I would say start with us. There's a lot of market in the Middle East, and grow it through direct apprenticeship, one way or the other, so that we all grow together, and so that there isn't a gap in a security professional in the U.S. or anywhere else for that matter. Like we have our own gaps in the U.S. with Russia. We have our own gaps with China. We have our own gaps everywhere. What we have to our advantage is the synergy, the common language. And so I think we can build on that. The issue of passing compliance or passing a background check, I think is important, but not that much at this time.
Thank you both. We'll go to the next question from Fida. Her question was, for security sector, Mr. Ahmed talked about outsourcing in Jordan and the Gulf. What about Palestine? Do you think there is a good market in Palestine? So that's the first part. And her other part of the question, or her other question is, do you think there's a, this is my, the other, do you see there's a good number of Palestinian towns qualified for the cybersecurity sector, and what about the competition, and where is the lack? So two different questions.
So the first part of the question regarding the Palestinian market. Now, I have worked in that market for 10 years. And in 2010, it almost did not exist. In 2020, it's becoming much bigger. Now, by the standards of the other countries, it's still tiny. It's still very, very small. Now, there are certain differences. Now, when it comes to the technology that I've seen companies in Palestine using, the technology is almost the same. The tools that are being used in places like Paltel and places like Ooredoo and all of the different are exactly the same technologies that you see in the US, right? It's you see CrowdStrike, you see Splunk, you see all of these different technologies are the same. The size and the magnitude of the implementation is different. The scale of the implementation is different. So while the technical skills can be found, there is some sort of a limit when it comes to scaling, because in here you have organizations that have, I don't know, like 60,000 employees. The biggest organization in Palestine is probably like 5,000 employees. So there's this difference in scale. That means that there are less companies that are working in this field as well. It also means that there is smaller budgets, but it doesn't mean, in my opinion, that the skills are not there. I almost have learned everything I know in Palestine, nowhere else. Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
The question was related to the skills, and if there's is there enough skills? We'll pull up the question again so I make sure. Is there a good number of Palestinians talented and qualified for the sector? And if not, where's the lack? Okay,
so when you talk about skills, I think the way I think about it is basically two parts. The first part is the talent, the willing to learn, the basis, right? And this is where these are the things that you look for in fresh graduates. And I think universities are doing a lot of great work when it comes to that. The second part of the skill is the actual practice and the actual experience. And for that to happen, you need to have organizations that actually work in this sphere, in this business. And this is where the problem is. There aren't so many companies. There are a few companies that are doing a lot of great work, but there should be more of that. And the reason why we do not have more of that is simply because we don't have a big enough market for that. So we have too many students. Well, I wouldn't say too many. There are so many students, great knowledge, great basic knowledge, a great appetite for learning, and they're very, very eager to learn. And when you give them things, and Osama might disagree with me on this, but when you give them tasks or when you give them specific things to learn, they would do it very, very quickly. And I'm speaking from my personal experience, and this doesn't only apply to security. I've seen this also in the other type of work that I do, which is cloud. And as you all know, cloud is this new technology now. And I think cloud is very promising because you can get so far when it comes to development if you're relying on cloud more. And the same thing for security. I hope it answers the question.
Thank you, Ahmed. Sama, did you have anything to add?
I do not. Don't agree or disagree. It's just Ahmed covered it.
Perfect. All right. So we have another question from Ayman. Ayman says, I have a cousin who has made tens of thousands off of finding security risks in Facebook and getting bounties. What is your knowledge on bounty hunting for large tech firms?
Osama, I'm going to let you go first this time.
It works. I mean, it's nice. It works. I think anybody, like, look, at the end of the day, if you live in Norway and you're a hacker, you're going to beat anybody's tools. Why? Because for 6 months, you're sitting at home doing nothing because there's darkness outside. So we are always afraid of people from Norway because they're so good, because they have nothing better to do but to spend the time and effort to do it. So as an income, if you want to do it as an income, absolutely, it's fine. And just a reminder to everybody, one of the best hackers are in Gaza. So the best hackers in SIP telephony are definitely in Gaza worldwide. So that's what they do. They make money off of that. They make money out of transferring calls and stuff like that. So it does exist. You're going to be competing with them, and they're good. They're very good, actually.
So I would like, I agree on that. That type of work requires a lot of work. It's a time-consuming process, and it's not for everyone because it requires like some real dedication. It's also not a fixed income, so you have to like work for it more. But speaking of that, I want to show you. Let me see if I can share my screen again. And I'm not sure how I can do that. There you go. I'm gonna have to find this page. So I was talking to one of our guys, and this is his profile. Can you guys see my screen? Okay. So this is one of our guys, and this website, HackerOne, basically it's a bug bounty program. And look at this. This is his profile, and these are some of the things he does. This is another one, which is more active on it. And this is the Hall of Fame. These are the companies that he managed to find security issues and reporting them successfully. So this is not a myth. You have a lot of people who are really talented and who are willing to spend this time. And by the way, this guy, for example, he works full time, and then on his free time he does this, just to make sure that he stays sharp, like his knowledge stays sharp.
In a simple summary, it's not an industry. It is. So that's why I don't know how to count. I can't make an industry out of it.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's true.
Thank you, guys. So I have a question here. You know, with you know, learning security, obviously there's the technology side that you can learn, just like you know, your coding or any other method. But you know, there are more specific. You know, hackers you know, get creative and try to find ways, and it's, I think, big part of the hacker's experience comes from the experience itself, not from the knowledge. Obviously, they know coding, they know other language, you know, other configurations of network devices, security, etc. So, what's the fine line between, you know, hacking or trying? You need to experience it to be able to advance in it, and to do that ethically and to do that legally as well, because there's, I think, a fine line, and I think also countries vary in the legality of certain things. How does somebody who wants to advance and get that experience do that safely?
I'm just going to say, for Israel, they do it for 3 years. They give them a lot of incentives. They take them right out of the military. It's a whole industry that they build smack out of the military. So whatever we compete, however we compete, it has to be on a very, very large scale. Because when we talk about you want to graduate 20,000 people, that means you're going to start with 200,000 people. And just so that everybody understands what we're dealing with, it doesn't mean anything if you could code. Why? Because an attack could be based on a networking feature. So just think, how many years does it take you to understand networking, infrastructure, the layers of a protocol, what a TCP, UDP is, how does it work, how does it function, how does a memory stack work? Everything we talk about, you have to know as a security professional, just being a hobbyist. That's not even a professional. So we have to have this industry that would take a lot of people and then find the people that like it, just like Ahmed and others. And we have to spend this 3 years really giving them that experience. Because without experience, it's just an academic exercise. I have yet to see anybody who's good in security. I mean, they can talk academically all they want, but at the end of the day, I want to see them forensically investigate and or countermeasure.
So I agree with everything that was said so far, and it's also important to understand that if you remember from Samuel's slide, one of the slides basically was describing what you need to do in order to basically secure an organization. Basically, you have to learn SIM and do all of that. This is what organizations currently do, and that means the jobs in security. When you look at people who are in the industry, and this is here in the US, it's not like everyone is a hacker. It's not like everyone is like a super smart guy who's like spending all of their time like. It's not. I mean, I understand that this might be how people see it, but it's not true. Very few people are actually really good at hacking. And I'm talking about the US, not about anywhere else. These few people would do specific things, such as they would work as penetration testers. That would be a person who really likes the techie aspect of it and is willing to dig into the details. Maybe would participate in bounty hunting, and then maybe like start a career out of that by moving into penetration testing. But then around that, there's all sorts of other things that you can do as a security professional. And they vary in degree of how close they are to the actual security. The other part is also something from Osama's presentation, was when he talked about the funding. He said, the hackers are stronger than us. They have more funding, and that's actually true. Because nowadays we have state sponsored hackers, basically their armies. And it's very, very difficult to compete from an organization perspective with that. And I wish I have an answer for that. I don't think I have yet, except that in what we hear in the industry is that we do our best, which is not really great.
Thank you for it. Okay, so a comment that Hatem Sahouri made, it was one way to use security experts from Palestine is to train developers on how to build secure software. Developers are required to take annual security training. So
lovely. I totally agree. Hatem.
Yeah.
So I have one more thing to add. Actually, that statement is true, and it's also becoming more true, because with moving to the cloud, a lot of the work that we used to do as security professionals that has to do with operating systems and with networking is kind of having less emphasis on now, and people are moving to the cloud, which means they're moving more into DevOps and DevOps security, and they're also moving into development as well. So we used to say that a big portion of the security is on the developers, but now it's getting even more so just because of the cloud technologies and infrastructure as code. Everything is becoming code. So even security professionals are now finding themselves in this situation where they have to know code, at least like basic Python and Bash and stuff like that.
Great, and I think that habit of making sure security is on their mind while they do their work, because it's not only coding, it's also behavior. It's security is into everything, right? So, okay, so Hussam has a question. Do we have enough pen testing focus in Palestinian consulting work, training, university courses? Maybe that's where we need to start. That's where we need to start to improve and create security engineers. So, Ahmed, or if you guys have any
I'm relinquishing to you, Ahmed.
Okay, so penetration testing / ethical hacking is one aspect of the security profession, right? There are many other things. So I'm not sure that we have, like, I don't have like recent updates on what universities teach right now. But it wasn't the case. Like I'm not aware that any university is actually teaching hacking as part of their curriculum. I know that many universities are teaching basics of security. That means the theory, the management, some of the technical aspects of it. But at the same time, I'm not sure if that's the right approach. And this is something for us to think about as well, to actually teach purely hacking for students. Because there are other things and they might not end up working that. Having said that, from personal experience, I think if you as a security professional, if you have some sort of an understanding about how attacks work, you would make a better information security professional. Because you know that you don't have to be an expert, but you know the basics and you can do the basic stuff at least.
There's one thing I just want to add to this. what if we actually figure out a way to establish a secure internet and secure transactions in the next 10 years? Then that means most of the professionals that we build have, a dead-end career. Now, that's just a negative thing I want to bring up because everybody's looking at it. Do I think we'll get there? I don't know. I mean, if you guys remember 1995, we said technology is going to be homogenous and everybody is going to be happy together. And here we are. Nobody's talking to each other. We have different browsers, different operating systems, different clouds, different orchestration, different everything. We've succeeded in fragmenting the hell out of the internet. So I don't know, but I think in the security field, one thing that I will tell you financially, if it continues at this level, to transact on the internet is going to be very expensive. And there's going to be this push to make a difference. And when that pressure builds up enough, we're going to see change on the internet from a fundamental issue where countries stop accepting each other's traffic directly. They start filtering traffic and stuff. And now as security professionals, everything switches. So I think just like any other career, take it, study it, learn it, and be good at it. I mean, there's just a lot of work.
Thank you. So we don't have any more questions from the audience, so wanted to we aced them. But Osama, talking about the future, isn't it? I mean, I don't know if security is going to be solved in with new technologies or anything. There'll always be something new. I mean, it will be different, and we just have to learn how to beat it, I believe. But I'm not following too much these days the security trends, but I believe that we'll still have those people in demand, security professionals.
Maybe it'll be different. I think it'll be a little bit different. Look, at the end of the day, like the latest attack I was managing and dealing with, the people that did the hack made $700 million that year. So just think about it. Here I am, this stupid little consulting company working with a stupid medical provider, and we're dealing with a $700 million company. They have data centers, they have professionals, they have customer service. The best is customer service. Of course, we're here to help you. This is how much you pay us, and this is what we'll do. And their customer service is excellent. So what's happening now is as companies are forced to pay, we started to have to buy insurance. And the insurance is starting to pay. And we're spending 2, 3, 5 days, 10 days as a business going out of business, trying to recover. 38%, 40% of businesses don't really recover. So at the end of the day, security has to be solved on an institutional, a governmental level. I think technically we've tried our best, but we're not that good. I mean, obviously, our competition, because look, at the end of the day, we're spending more money on security, and we're paying more money to the hackers. So now the hackers are making more money, and they're getting better. So if I were just to be objective here, I would say between 2010 and 2021, they kicked our ass.
We do not want to encourage people to become malicious hackers, right? But
I didn't say anything, Ahmed, but that was a good point. Thank you.
So, Sidki, you mentioned something interesting when you mentioned the word change, and that kind of alludes to what Osama was saying. Is basically like the technology sphere is changing, and with that, security. Now, so far, what we have witnessed, every time there's a big change in the technology world, it always comes with additional risks. And that is like a historical thing. Well, the history of the internet is not that long, but that has been the case so far. And again, a good example of that is cloud. And for those who are interested, there's a very interesting talk about the differences between security, traditional security and security on cloud. And the main theme is security is the same, but different. So same concepts, but different ways of implementing that. Now, why is this important for us? As people were trying to build the security community and sector in Palestine, is because we have to be aware that we need, when we're teaching our younger generation about IT, and security, IT in general and security in specific, we always have to look to the cutting edge technologies and start from there. We need to learn some legacy systems, but we always have to be ahead of everyone else. And I'm saying that in specific to the cloud because I'm seeing now, like in 2020, I started to see people moving more, like professionals moving more, learning more about the cloud. Before that, it wasn't the case. Now everyone is kind of picking up and they're getting at it. And I think if we need to succeed, we need to stay ahead of the curve. We need to focus on the cutting edge technologies, not get stuck in a previous era, especially that this moves so fast.
Thank you. So I think our time is coming to end. If you guys, any closing remarks, words of encouragement or advice that you could give our audience, please? Maybe we'll start with Osama this time.
Thank you. So just a quick one. Anybody who's interested in Mujawara, please reach out. I think Mujawara has a huge chance in improving things in Palestine. It's easy for us financially to cover it. It's easy for us also to do the training. It's very hard for us to collect the right type of people, etc. We need companies that would help train these individuals on what they do. We need companies that would take them on for internships, and universities who would want to volunteer the best of their students who they think is really good at it. The more we have people focused on the training programs, the more we have people focused on developing the sector, the more we will build the sector. So I would agree with Ahmed that at the end of the day, everybody is the same. It's not like people in Palestine are disadvantaged than people in India or Bulgaria or anywhere else. It's just an opportunity. Opportunity meets the resource, meets the person. Let's be opportunistic. And if you're a company or an individual or a university, please reach out. Let's try to figure how to do this in Palestine. And the nice thing about Mujawara, everybody gets paid. There's no such thing as being trained for free, or you having to pay us to be trained. We will pay you to train you.
Osama, Ahmed?
The final thing I would say is that the security gap in the US market seems to be expanding. And we've noticed that a lot of Palestinian members of the community are eager to help. We just need to put the work into it. We know what to do, we just have to do it.
Thank you both. Really appreciate your time and talk in this session. And, you know, we hope to be more in touch with you and kind of continue this ongoing. And we hope to learn more about Mujawara as well, Osama.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thank you very much.
We will have we'll have our closing remarks here at 10 p.m. Jerusalem time. That's 3 p.m. Eastern time. And then would be it. Thank you, everybody, for attending. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Osama and Ahmed, again. Wonderful talk. I would like to also add to the closing remark, we'll be also sharing the events report. I think you'll be very curious to know how things turn out in numbers. I'm going to share all the analytics with you. So come back in 6 minutes.
Thanks.